everyone? Welcome to the Daily Grind. My name is Kelly Johnson, your fun and friendly host. We are on episode 45, the very best one yet. Shout out to my podcast team, Ambiguous Network, and fellow pods on there, including UMAD Bro, the Sam Bustle Podcast, and GDP Goal Driven Professionals. Where to find more about the network, head over to ambiguouspodcastsolutions.com. And if you're interested in joining the network, reach out to Will Tereshuk and his team. So, speaking of listening to podcasts and sharing them online, I got connected to another follower of the Robin Hood Snacks podcast, and here we are today, going to talk about his daily grind and sharing his story. So, without further ado, let me introduce you to Jonathan Rajchel. So, Jonathan, he is currently a student at the University of Pittsburgh, an avid runner, and also studying for his insurance license. He lives and works in the White Oak, Pennsylvania. So, welcome, Jonathan. Woo.
Awesome. Thanks, Kelly. I'm super excited to be here. This is a really exciting opportunity
Yeah.
for sure.
I'm glad to have you on the podcast today, and I'm excited to hear about your story and also share it with our listeners out there. So I guess first and foremost, can you tell them who you are, where you're from, and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Who am I? I'm still trying to figure that out. Honestly, I think if we all knew the answer to that question, everything else in our life would fall into place. But I'd like to think, Kelly, I'm probably your youngest guest that you've probably ever had. I'm 20 years old, so I just finished up my junior year at the University of Pittsburgh, double major in finance and business information systems. So I'm a full-time student. I'm a part-time employee at a hoagie shop, so I make sandwiches for a living right now. But I got an awesome opportunity to intern this summer at Northwestern Mutual, kicking off my hopefully the beginning of my career as a financial advisor. So that's super exciting, actually. Very excited about that, to be able to still be able to have that opportunity given the current state of our world right now. I volunteer a lot at my church. I'm very involved with our church's youth group. It's probably the biggest thing I'm passionate about is youth ministry. Honestly, I love it. It brings me so much life. Um, and what else do I do? I do a lot of stuff in my church. So I serve on like the tech team, doing the sound and the lights and stuff. And I also get the opportunity to go on a lot of missions trips with my church too. I was supposed to be going to Honduras actually next week, but that trip got postponed due to coronavirus. But that's just a little about who I am and what I do. So yeah, I'm super excited to be here today
Yeah,
for sure.
that's great, Jonathan. You are truly a daily grinder. Lots of stuff on your plate, lots of things you're doing out there to inspire people around you in your community, as well as people across the world, all around the U.S. So we have listeners all over the place. And yeah, shout out to that's awesome. Virtual high five with the finance and business information systems major. I was a finance and management double at the
That's awesome.
University of Wisconsin Mass, and a couple years ago. So yeah, that's really cool. I like it. Go
Thank
team
you.
finance and go team working hard, grinding out there.
Gotta love it. Gotta love the grind.
Yeah, that sounds good. And again, thanks again for taking time out of your day to record this episode. And yeah, and despite of going on the Honduras trip, you're here recording an episode on the Daily Grind. And yeah, I think history is in the making here. I think you are the youngest guest I've had so far on the Daily Grind. I would have to look back on our records, but I'm pretty sure that's correct. So we're going to go with it. So
That's awesome.
yeah, first, like, how did you become interested in studying finance and business and information systems?
So this story is kind of silly and it sounds cliche, but ever since I was young, probably, I don't know, 8 or 9 years old, maybe, I knew that like I was going to go to college and I knew I wanted to go to business school. Obviously, at the age of 8 or 9, I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to do that because I absolutely love the game Monopoly. I don't know why, I just loved it. Um, so that kind of birthed that desire to go to business school and be a part of that. And I think as I got a little bit older towards the end of high school and I started to become interested in like the stock market and how it worked and why it worked and what it was. And I think that's what sparked the interest to go pursue finance. Um, the business information system, that was just like, I needed to add a second major to kind of get more value out of the 120 credits I'm going to get my bachelor's degree. So it was a easy major, only 15 credits to get it. So I was like, okay, I'll throw that in there, get more value out of the education. So, and it's actually been very interesting. I actually come to enjoy it a little bit.
That's awesome. I guess too, maybe right away with our listeners, since you are a current student, you just finished your junior year. How has COVID-19 impacted the spring semester, your most recent semester, and any updates with like this upcoming fall on like structure?
Yeah, so the what happened was we the whole shutdown happened while we were on spring break. It was our week of spring break, and that's when everything shut down in our area. So they sent all the students home, and they gave us a whole nother week off after spring break was over, to kind of give the professors and everyone time to adjust and figure out how they were going to adapt their course, to be online and lecture over Zoom for the rest of the semester. And actually, we got out. So finals week was a week earlier than it was scheduled to be too, because of I guess because of the pandemic. They kind of streamlined all the material, at least in the business school at Pitt. They kind of streamlined all the material and said, all right, we're going to knock this out. We're going to do, instead of chapters like 13, 14, 15, we're just going to do chapter 13 and 14, and we're going to get you guys out of here a week early. Um, I honestly thought it was going to be a lot easier. Class online, I'm like, okay, I don't think the professors care anymore, but it was harder than I thought it was going to be, and it actually took me a good week or two to adjust to what it was actually going to take to finish the semester strong. Um, and I would like to say I did well in all of my courses, or I finished well in all of my courses, and the reality was I didn't, because I underestimated how difficult it was going to be moving forward. But it was a learning lesson. It was a learning lesson to try and adapt and be more flexible in life, and not just blow it off because it's different, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that was probably the biggest takeaway from all of that. As far as what it's going to look like going forward, I don't know. They haven't given us the red or the green light on are we going to be back on campus or are we not. But there have been several other universities around. I know a couple in Ohio. I was just talking to a student from John Carroll University yesterday, and he was saying that they are opening back their entire campus back up, and they're allowing their students, if they were planning on living there over the summer, to come back already. So I guess that's a great sign. I know it's in Ohio and not Pennsylvania, but it's encouraging to hear that that's actually happening somewhere, especially a state that's pretty close. But I'm hoping we can be back on campus. Um, I really would like to. I don't live on campus, but just being able to to school as opposed to doing it from home, I just like the being able to go and be in a lecture hall around other students and physically with a professor. I just learn so much better that way. So I'm really hoping that we can get back to that.
Really good points there, Jonathan. With just campuses being open, hopefully down the road. I mean, we're recording in May, so we still have a good amount of time before that fall semester starts. Does University of Pittsburgh have summer classes? Are those currently switched to online? Do you know, or?
Yeah, they are. I am not taking any because the price is a little inflated, than normal credits. But I know those were all moved online
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
this summer.
yeah. I think that's the trend for currently the next couple of weeks or I guess month or so. A lot of states are still at the stay-at-home phase, or currently in Chicago, where I'm located, we're in phase 3. So some businesses are open and others are still shut down. A lot of social distancing is being involved. I know I spoke to another guest on the pod, Tori Maldonado, a couple episodes ago. She was at the University of Chicago, Loyola University of Chicago, and hers were switched to online classes as well. But that was more that was earlier in April. So I mean, a lot of stuff has changed over the past couple of weeks. A lot of things are very fluid at the moment. So yeah, hopefully, best of luck to come ahead with your courses this fall and also too throughout the U.S. I think a lot of places are slowly opening up doors. It's just a matter of when is the question, I guess, at this
Hmm.
point. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so going on to, first of all, congrats on getting the internship. That's huge. being a
Thank
college
you.
student. So, yeah, can you walk us through the process of you becoming an intern as well as your part time job? How do you balance both of those and also with your schoolwork too?
Yeah, so it's not easy. I would like to say it's easy, and I'm used to it at this point, but I'm really not. It's a lot of honestly, it sounds cliche, but it's a lot of really late nights, and I'm not a morning person, so it's not a lot of early mornings, but it's a lot of really late nights for me. Kind of how the way I got that internship, it's actually, I'm very excited to say it's a top 10 program in the financial industry, which I think is super exciting because it's like, who am I, to get that? I'm very grateful for it. But I had been sitting down with our career counselor at the University of Pittsburgh and, trying to explore like what did I wanted to do this summer and what I wanted to do with my finance degree and the financial advising career became the most attractive to me because I love to help people and it's an opportunity where I could take what I've learned and I can use it to impact people's lives and make money while doing it, which is just a benefit, I guess, to being able to help people. There's so many people that help people out there for free, and it's like, wow, I can step into a career where I can help people and get paid to do it, which I think is awesome. Um, but I had been applying for internships like crazy through a couple different websites. I was using Indeed. .com and our University of Pittsburgh is really active with Handshake.com. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of that. It's kind of the same thing as Indeed, but it's specifically geared towards college students. So I was using those two things and using Google trying to find internships with companies. And I couldn't tell you how many I applied for, 30, maybe 40. And I happened to be driving to campus and I got a phone call literally as soon as I stepped out of my car. And it was the recruiter from Northwestern Mutual asking, like, um, just asking me why I was interested in the internship. And I honestly, at that point, I had applied for so many, I'd forgot what the internship even was there. And I said, well, this is what I want to do with my degree, yada, yada, yada. And she's like, oh, well, that's exactly what you'll be doing this summer. And I was like, fantastic. I could get started like right away. So she called me in. I went in and interviewed in like December and they send you home with homework. If you get called, if they schedule you for a second interview, they have you go and meet people and do market surveys, like literally what you would be doing if you were a financial advisor. You would be going and meeting people and talking to them, asking them questions. So we had to do that. We had to go sit down with three people we knew and three people we didn't know, and just interview them. And we were asking them kind of what their opinion and experience it was with the financial industry and financial advisors and different companies and how they save money and stuff like that. We weren't selling them anything, but it was to get us outside of our comfort zone. And I did it and I absolutely loved it. It was actually really weird. I reached out to somebody who I got referred to and I said, hey, this is what I'm doing. Would you be willing to help me out? And the guy invited me over his house for dinner with his family. Never met him before, only communicated over email. And I'm literally sitting at his dinner table with him and his family. And I was like, wow, this is actually really cool. Like I could do this all the time. Um, especially when you're getting free food out of it. But it was great. And I went in for my third interview after that. And they were like, wow, I told them kind of my experience, my story with the market surveys and how much I enjoyed it. And they loved it. They ate it up and they hired me. And I got hired, I want to say it was January or February. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. It really gave me a little bit more motivation for my current classes. Um, and kind of was like, okay, I'm not just going to school anymore. I'm actually like making something of myself at this point. It was a really, really good feeling. And they before you could start in the summer, you have to get your license to sell insurance. So they send you all the materials, they pay for it completely, but you have to pass the life accident and health insurance exam by a certain date. And that got adjusted around because of coronavirus and everything. But I took the exam last week and I passed. So I could go be Jake from State Farm right now if I didn't want to go graduate college, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep going. Hopefully, it's just the start, it's the beginning, and yeah, it's very exciting. I'm very excited for it. We've been doing what Northwestern Mutual calls Financial Planning Academy, and we were supposed to do that in their downtown Pittsburgh office this week, but because of the pandemic, we've been doing it virtually over Zoom, and it's just been so cool just to see how supportive they are and how they have such a team culture, and they want to see the best come out of all the interns that they have. Um, and I'm really excited. We're actually going to get a chance to go into the office and um, start being financial representatives next week. So it's
Nice.
very exciting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
really exciting. Again, congratulations on the internship. Congratulations on passing exams. Perfect timing with
thank you.
recording this episode so we can hear your wonderful news. Yeah, it sounds like really goal driven, and I think a lot of stuff has aligned, and just all the hard work and effort that you put into accomplishing what you want to do in your personal and career goals. It really
Hmm.
fits along with what we preach on the daily grind, and I really enjoy you sharing that with our listeners out there. I think it's really important to hear from different people, different backgrounds, different industries, finance. So yeah, you're I think one of our first special guests on the show as well to talk more about that financial background, which is great. So love it. Let's keep on grinding
Awesome.
out there. But yeah, speaking of finance, so um, with one of your favorite podcasts, you and I both listen to the Robin Hood Snacks podcast. That's how we basically got connected.
Yeah.
How'd you become inspired to? So Jonathan is celebrity on this podcast. Just he's not gonna humbly brag about it, but I'll just mention it anyway. But so he created this snacks challenge that you recorded in March, and it basically aired like the next day on Robin Hood Snacks. That's how I heard about it. But yeah, do you want to tell our listeners a little bit more about like the Robin Hood Snacks, like how you started listening to it? How did you come up with this challenge?
Yeah, yeah. So how I started listening to it was I want to say I started listening in November 2019. So I haven't been a snacker for too long. But I was looking for financial podcasts to start listening to. And that was one of the first ones that popped up on Spotify. And I was like, awesome. They have an episode every Monday through Friday. I was like, that's exactly what I'm looking for. They have constant new content, constant new material. The episodes weren't too long. So it was perfect. And obviously Nick and Jack, the hosts, they're very entertaining and they're absolutely excellent at what they do. And I just kind of fell in love with it like right away. Um, and I've been listening to it almost every day ever since. And normally I would listen to the podcast on my commute to class every day, but because of the pandemic, I lost that commute because I was doing school from home, and so I started listening to the podcast while I would run in the afternoons. So I want to say it was kind of towards the beginning of quarantine. It was that week that there were all those different like quarantine challenges on social media. I don't remember all of them. I want to say there were three or four of them that were going on that were pretty big at the time. The push up challenge was like a popular one. I remember it was like C10, do 10, pass 10, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I was participating in that one, of course. Um, that was a fun one, but I was probably I don't know how far I ran the day I came up with it. Probably just 3 or 4 miles. Um, but I started the podcast right at the beginning of my run, and it was probably about a little over halfway through the podcast, and I was like, "Huh, how cool would it be to like create a challenge around Robin Hood snacks? And what if like I like brought it up, mentioned Nick and Jack and Robin Hood snacks on Twitter, and see if they like it?" So I finished the run. It was one of my probably a better run because I got excited, so I started running a little bit faster than I normally do. So the episode ends. So I record the video, I put it on Twitter, and it was almost like right away, like you said, that Nick and Jack responded. They loved it. And my favorite thing about what the Snacks Challenge did, which the Snacks Challenge was, ended up being how far can you run, jog, or bike, whatever you're into, in one episode of Snacks Daily. And probably for a couple weeks after that, I want to say like there were a lot of people either just putting a tweet or taking a video or taking a picture of themselves on their running or on their bike saying how far they ran in that day's episode. And it was really cool just to see how in a time of like social distancing where so many people were like alone. People were like living alone for the first time, and they can't go see people and do the things that they normally would do. Just like the community that the Snacks Challenge was able to create over Twitter. Um, and Nick and Jack actually reached out to me over email and said, "Well, thank you so much." I was like, "Hey, I just made a video. You guys are the ones that like took it and ran with it." Um, but it was really cool just to see how that happens. And they're supposed to send me a T-Boy T-shirt at some point. I'm waiting on that, so I'm hoping for quarantine to be over so I can get my T-Boy T-shirt. Um, Maybe I'll do a Snacks challenge wearing the shirt when that happens. We'll
Y-
see. But
yeah. hmm That's
it's pretty cool. I got name dropped like twice on the podcast. I was like, huh. Even though they said my name wrong, which I wasn't going to tell them about that. They called me Jonathan Rachel, even though it's Rachel, but that's okay. I'm not upset about
Mhm.
it.
Yeah, that's great. I love that you came about the idea like in the midst of running, like going out on a run too. And I think it inspired a lot of people out there, myself included. I tweeted about it, run it. I did it too, as well. Like again, in Chicago, like it's in lockdown, so I just kind of ran around the city. I'm currently working from home, and I just wanted to get outside my apartment, basically. Uh, and I'm a runner as well, so like I think it was such a great idea that you had, and I think it really built a community around during that time. And again, everyone's doing the hashtag quarantine goals out there. I think this one's really unique, and it kind of, I think it fits all together. You can run, walk, anything like move around basically
Mhm.
while listening to the podcast. So. Super cool idea out there. But yeah, speaking of running, so are you a big runner, Jonathan?
Yeah, I disclaimer, I want to throw that out there. I've never ran like track or cross country in high school. I went to like a small Christian private high school, so we only had like soccer and basketball. So that was what I did. Um, but I would say I'm a pretty big runner. I don't compete as much as I would like to at races, but I'm working my way up there. Eventually, I would love to do a full marathon. I've only done a couple half marathons at this point. But I would like to think I'm pretty fast. I don't know. Um, I don't. I try not to brag about it because like I always want to encourage other people to run, and every time I get trying to get other people to run with me, they're like, "Oh no, I don't want to." And I'm like, no, no, no. Like we can run together, or we'll just go to the same place and run. And if like we get separated, I'll just come back at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I love it. It's something that I enjoy and I do to decompress, and it's amazing. I think it's one of those things that if you love it, you love it, and if you don't, you just don't understand how great it is. Um, but I, I've always been kind of I don't want to say I've always been fast, but I always have been. Like I remember my dad has told stories a few times where he would take all the neighborhood kids because we were all around the same age to the park, and there was a walking trail. I guess he would take us all along because we enjoyed doing that. I don't remember how old we were. I don't even remember doing this. He just told this
Mm-hmm.
story once, and somebody would like one of the kids that were there would be like, "Let's race to that tree" or whatever, and we would all like I guess run to the tree and whoever got there first would win. But he would say stuff like I instead of just stopping at the tree, like I would just keep going. um, and I've always like I think about that a lot, and um, I've always tried to be that person that like never stops, that like goes the extra mile or goes the extra 10 feet or goes the extra hour, whatever that looks like in whatever context you're doing. I've always tried to be that person. um, but I got into running probably when I was about 14 or 15. Someone who was friends with my mom invited me to go do a 5K. And at that point, I had never done a 5K before. And I was like, sure, why not? It could be fun. And it was a terrible, terrible, terrible course. I think about it sometimes. I still go run there every now and then, but I ran, I want to say, I finished the 5K in like 21 minutes. And for someone who wasn't a runner, or even for people that are runners, it's like ridiculous to some people. To me, I wasn't very impressed with myself, but that was just me. Um, and that's kind of what sparked the interest in running. And ever since then, I've been obsessed with it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, 5Ks are still my favorite races to do. It's like a sprint, and it's high intensity, it's fast, and it's my favorite event to do still to this
Mhm.
day.
That's awesome. I like the young Jonathan story. How you become interested in running and all. That's great. Yeah, you still have good news is you have plenty of time throughout the rest of your running is a lifelong sport, so you have plenty of time to complete that marathon or marathons plural. You might get hooked on it. Who knows? Uh, I've done. I'm on track to do my fourth marathon. I was supposed to do Boston April this year, and then it got pushed to September 14th, and then actually perfect timing. We're recording this podcast a couple
It
hours
just got
ago.
canceled
Yeah, it just
today.
got
Yeah.
canceled. So I'm up in the air in regards to where I'm gonna run next, but I think I'm gonna do a fall marathon somewhere in September because reading the whole Boston qualifying time process, I need to requalify my time because you have to run a marathon September 2019 or later. So my qualifying time basically is invalid now. So now I'm looking
Oh
for
well.
a race, hopefully to find. Hopefully that still is going on a smaller race that is certified Boston BQ certified and whatnot. But yeah, I think just building up to like 5Ks and 10Ks, halves are great. I love doing those. Do you do a lot of more like local races, or do you travel a little bit? Like, do you have a favorite? Like, I guess so far for how long you've been running, do you have a favorite like race that you've done?
Yeah, I do. I have not traveled yet. I have done a couple 5Ks in Florida. That's just because I have a lot of extended family down there, and I was there, and I was like, let's just go do it. Actually, I guess I did travel to do a race. So my family started what is called the Brain Cancer Awareness 5K for my mom, and we started that here in Pittsburgh, and it's grown over the past 6 years to this massive event where we've actually partnered with a national organization called Head for the Cure, and they're kind of taking it over and making the event bigger than we ever could. Um, and I actually have traveled. I did go to Florida to run a brain cancer awareness 5K because my mom's brother started his own brain cancer awareness 5K down there. So I did travel to go run that one year. So I guess I have traveled to run a race before. Um, but I mostly just do 5Ks. If I had to say I have a favorite race, it's probably the Pittsburgh. It's called the Great Race. It's a 5K, 10K. Um, I usually just do the 10K. I love it. I love being in the city, running through the city, running through some of the neighborhoods, and there's always a ton of people on the street cheering you on, and it's just like gives you such an adrenaline rush, and it's so awesome. Um, but that race is usually every September, um, and I've done it twice, and I loved it. I really enjoyed it. And this year I was planning on doing, I forget what they call it. They call it some sort of challenge, but the 5Ks at like 8 a.m. and the 10Ks at like 9:15. So you can run the 5K and then take a shuttle up to the start of the 10K and then run the 10K, which is what I was going to do this year. But I think if I remember correctly, they're doing the race virtually this year. So I won't get to do that. But that's my 100% favorite race. It's pretty, for Pittsburgh, it's pretty big. It's usually about 6 to 10,000 people. So it's a pretty big race. That's probably my favorite one that I've ever done, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Yeah. I really, yeah.
oh wow, that's really cool. That's really interesting on the challenge too. The 8 a.m. and then 10:15. I like that. Like again, you go in 110%. That's great. And another great thing too, organizing your own 5K for brain cancer awareness. And yeah, again, sharing your story, inspiring others out there. That's like what we want to hear on the daily grind. That's really good stuff. Do you have any upcoming races or um stuff down the road that you're possibly working on, or I guess maybe earlier this year that you're possibly training for, like before coronavirus took effect, but now everything's getting postponed? Is virtual racing really big near you?
See, I was training for the Pittsburgh Half Marathon, which was supposed to be the first weekend of May, and I was training for it, and then they announced that they were going to move it to virtual, and it was like, no, not a huge big fan of that. I didn't want to pay the race entry fee to like go and run outside my house because like they did it virtual. You could run anywhere, and they were like timing you somehow. Um, but as soon as they announced that, I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. Um, I just wasn't a big fan of the virtual thing. Uh, but I was planning on doing the half marathon, and I was actually very prepared and ready for it. And then they made it virtual, and I was just like not into it. Um, as far as going into the fall, there's a couple local half marathons that they do on this one bike trail by my house. This one guy does the events. They're pretty small half marathons. They're like 100, 200 people show up, but the course is flat. So I've always liked to go do those. I did it once before. So I was like, oh, I could just go up and do that. I'm at the point like physically as a runner that if I were to go run a half, I could just do it. Like I wouldn't have to super like take 3 months and knock out a training plan because I could just up and go do it. So I have been in the past a lot more spontaneous with races. The Pittsburgh half marathon was probably the first one where I was like, I'm going to start training for this seriously because there was thousands of people there. And I'm like, I want to see how I can place amongst like a larger group of people. But a majority of the races in Pittsburgh are actually pretty small, like less than 1,000 people. So I had a lot of times had just been spontaneous, like the week of, like grab a buddy and like, hey, let's go do this 5K. Hey, let's go do this 10K. Oh, there's a half this weekend. Can you do a half? Yeah, you can do a half. All right, let's go. So that's kind of have been my approach. Just because like my schedule's so all over the place, it's hard to pick a date so far out in advance. But that's kind of been my approach and what I've done in the past, and
Mm-hmm.
it's worked for me. It's worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I almost enjoy the being slightly less prepared. It just makes it feel like harder. You know, it's just I don't know. It makes it feel like there's a little bit more adversity there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I enjoy that aspect of that too.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, if it works for your schedule, I'd say just go for it. Whatever fits your daily grind, and it seems like things are going well. You're a fast runner. You're doing something that you're passionate about. You're able to balance that with a lot of different things, with your work, with your studies, and challenge yourself, which is great. Keep on pushing yourself. To do good out there and achieve your goals. So yeah, I guess speaking of like balancing your schedule, we talked a little bit earlier, but what are some tips for our listeners in helping balance their schedule or helping, let's say for instance, they are a runner, finding time to train or stay physically active.
Yeah, yeah. So, kind of how I balance that and how I plan that out is I look at my schedule and I look at my life really, and I kind of think big picture to small picture, or big picture to small detail. I do have goals I want to hit, like by the end of the year. Where do I want to be by the time I'm 25? Where do I want to be by the time I'm 30? So I've determined my aim, and then I figure out like what it's going to take to get there. And something I try to do is twice a year do something that takes me very far out of my comfort zone, and like it forces me to grow. That's something I've kind of done for the past 2 years now. I'm like, okay, what can I do before, if it's January, what can I do before the month of June that is going to force me to grow and force me to do things that are outside of my comfort zone? Um, and then in June, I kind of look at the back half of the year and I'm like, okay, what can I do before December that's going to do the exact same thing? And just kind of, it just forces growth on you, and it forces you to grow as a person and get outside of your comfort zone, which I love. I don't love, I hate it, but it's definitely something I've pushed myself to do. And with being young, having no kids, being single, um, balancing my schedule isn't too difficult. I kind of organize my schedule, or I do organize my schedule based on on like three different categories. I call them negotiables, non-negotiables, and flexibles. And if I had to define those terms, like negotiable would be things I want to do, but I don't have to be there. So if I need to bump them, like no big deal. Those things would be like going out with friends, or like, hey, let me crush an hour of some Call of Duty, just because I can, or like taking a nap or going and playing pickup soccer, like things that I'm like, oh, I want to do that, but if I need to move them, no big deal. And then the non-negotiables would be like things where I have to be there. Like work, I have to be at work. I have to attend lectures and exams or church. I don't want to say I have to be at church, but it's something that's important to me. So like if there's church on Sunday, like I'm going to be there like every week. Um, and then the flexibles, those would be things that I plan to do and I want to do, but the times that they happen during the day can vary. Like I make them fit. And those things would be like running, studying, obviously, and like my daily time, like reading the Bible and praying. So those things are flexible. And what I mean by that is like this week, with Memorial Day being Monday, which I didn't run on Memorial Day because it was Memorial Day, and having to do Financial Planning Academy Tuesday through Friday from 8 to 4:30. I would like to say I'm up early, I'm at them, but I'm not. I've been getting up at 7:45, throwing on a button-down shirt and getting in front of a Zoom camera every single day this week. But so I've been doing that, and then right at yet Tuesday and Wednesday this week, I had to go to work right after I got off of the Zoom calls. So what I did was, okay, I know I'm going to run and I'm going to do that. Where am I going to put it? I put it, wasn't the best place to put it, but I put it at night after I got home from work around 10:30. I'm like, okay, I'm going to make this fit. I'm going to do it. I'm going to stay active and keep myself disciplined. I know it's going to like bring my heart rate back up and it's going to keep me from sleeping, but I want to do it. And I know I'm not going to get up in the morning and doing it because that's just, that's just not me. Um, but I'm going to do it. Excuse me. So that's what I did. And it was a shorter run, shorter workout, only about 3 miles, just because I'm not out super late and I'm not like exerting so much on my body at that time. So that's what I did. And that's kind of where what I do is studying and running, like, because my schedule, it's never consistent for more than about 3 or 4 months at a time. For if I go into one semester, my classes are at different times every semester. And I go into the semester like, okay, I have 2 classes Monday, 2 Wednesday, 1 Tuesday, and then Thursday. So I will plan my times of studying and running and my time reading my Bible and praying kind of around that. And then call my boss and be like, hey, um, based on my school schedule this semester, I can only really work like Monday night and Friday night. And he's always been very supportive and helpful through that, and is like, okay, I can do that for you, not a problem. So that's kind of how I balance my calendar. Kind of, I guess to recap, that would be like negotiables, like non-negotiables, and flexibles. Those are like that's how I've always planned my schedule since I guess I became an adult or graduated high school, whatever you want to call that. So if I had to like summarize all of that and like encourage listeners of the daily grind, I would I would look at my life, I would determine my aim, like what are my goals in the next year, in the next 6 months, the next year, 5 years, 10 years, and what do I need to do to get there? What do I need to do today, over the next week, over the next month to get where I want to be long term? And whatever, just do whatever it takes, and don't expect perfection of yourself ever. Like that's something I have friends that are very close to me that tell me all the time like I'm too hard on myself, and I know that, but it's just like I don't know how to shake that. I still haven't gotten past that part of who I am, I guess, of just not being so hard on myself and going 100 miles an hour all the time, and just like slowing down and realizing, okay, it's okay to do less work today. Like you are not your healthiest self right now. Um, and just taking time to relax too. And I think that's something coming out of quarantine where life has been forced to slow down that I'll have to build into my schedule a little bit more, is like scheduling time to just like rest and do nothing. And like, I don't mean like sitting on the couch watching 4 episodes of Breaking Bad or like 3 seasons of The Office in a whole day, but being like, okay, for this next hour, I'm going to take leisure time, maybe just sit and read a book, or for pleasure, sit and read a book for pleasure, or be like, hey, the new Avengers movie just came out on Netflix. I haven't seen it. I'm going to take some time and relax and watch it and enjoy it. whatever that looks like for you and whatever you're into.
Hmm.
Um, I know that was a lot,
No, that's
but
oh, that was super great. Super great advice for our listeners out there, Jonathan. Really good job, and just kind of taking the big picture and going into the small detail. Like anything is possible, and to set your mind to it. And I really like your category perspective and breaking down with the negotiables, non-negotiables, and flexibles. Um, yeah, I think you put it really straightforward. Have that aim and then do what it takes to get there. Like, you want to do what you want to do in life, do stuff that you're passionate about. Don't just sign up for something because other people are doing. Do something that you truly are interested in and that helps you, or gets you to where you want to go in life.
mhm.
So I think that's really great input there. But yeah, speaking of finding time to de-stress or relax, I guess uh, do you want to share with our listeners? You're a snacker, Robin Hood Snacks podcast follower. Do you have other favorite podcasts that you listen to? Other things to do when you do have time to de-stress? Things like that.
Yeah, so if I had to name drop some podcasts for you, I don't even have to name drop Joe Rogan, first of all, like just Joe Rogan's podcast, like the best, 100%. Whenever Elon Musk is on there, I'm watching or listening, really. Great. Definitely Robin Hood Snacks. Fantastic business news. You don't have to be a business professional to understand what they're talking about. Usually, Nick and Jack take time and explain it if they throw a vocabulary word out there uh, from whatever it is. So they're great too. And another good one that is really helps you grow as an individual. It's called the Craig Groeschel Leadership Podcast. And Craig Groeschel, he is a pastor of Life Church. It's like, I think it's the biggest church in the country. But what he does is like once a month, he puts an episode out. Again, it's only about 15-20 minutes. So it's perfect for like a workout or like a short drive or even just to take a break, like your lunch break, it's perfect for too. And he goes off a script that he writes, and he just gives some great leadership um, perspectives and things you can do to help you grow as an individual and grow as a leader. And it's always, 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 even though it's coming from a pastor, it's very applicable and very tangible to anybody, no matter if you're a shift manager at a hoagie shop, or you're a pastor, or you're an analyst, or whatever it is. Like it's fantastic. So that's called the Craig Groeschel Leadership Podcast. His last name's really goofy to spell, so might be hard to find, but it's great. And then I guess a pleasure podcast for me. This one's a little weird. I know I, I might get a little bit of judgment for this, but it's called Lore. That's Lore. It's created by Aaron Mahnke. And what he does is it's kind of like a creepy pasta type thing. Um, he kind of explores some folklore, some like old um, mythical tales, like stuff like the New Jersey Devil and Bigfoot, and just weird stuff that's happened in history, like local legends. He does all like a whole bunch of different stuff, but it's very great. It's very entertaining. That's like a pleasure one for me, for sure. Kind of distracts you because it makes you listen and want to hear what happens next. That's another really good one. His podcast is pretty big too. He has his like on Amazon Prime show, but that's fantastic. So those are probably the main podcasts I listen to.
That's great. Yeah, we'll put Jonathan's recommendations on podcasts in today's show notes. So yeah, no worries about writing them down. We got you covered. That's great. I like the variety. Lots of motivational ones out there too. So yeah, Jonathan, we talked about your daily schedule. What's on your daily grind in the upcoming weeks later this year?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, this coming Monday, I start my internship as a financial representative. So I'll be learning how to do holistic financial planning, doing a lot of joint work with other financial advisors from Northwestern Mutual. So I'll be spending the entire summer doing that pretty much. Um, what else? I'll still be working on the weekends at the hoagie shop. Still got to make a little bit of money while I'm interning. So that'll keep me afloat for the summer. And what else is going on? Man, I feel like I'm blanking right now. Oh, I'll be volunteering for a week in the end of July up at the Buffalo Dream Center in Buffalo, New York. I usually lead a team. I usually take the youth group from our church up there every year. This year, it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to take a team from the youth group. I usually take about 20 teenagers up there. That's what I did the past 2 years. But I myself am still going to be going, even if I can't take the youth group from our church with me. So I'm excited that's coming up at the end of July. And once the semester kicks back off, I kind of, everything switches back around, focusing on school. And that's about it for me for the end of 2020. And obviously, if races start happening, I'll be out there running races somewhere in Pittsburgh, which I'm hoping to go not virtual and in person because I love the racing atmosphere and experience.
Yeah.
So I'll definitely be doing some of those.
Definitely. Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah. Again, daily grinder out here. Perfect example. Yeah, you got a lot of stuff. You got a busy summer coming ahead, and then fall too. Back to the semester and everything. Lots of good stuff. Yeah, good luck with everything, and I'm hoping to knock on wood right now, that we get no more virtual racing. I like the race day atmosphere for sure, 100%. So yeah, hopefully we can get those going soon. Jonathan, do you have a word of the day to motivate our listeners out there?
I do. And now, are you looking for a whole quote, or are you looking for a word that, or like one word?
Either or. I'll give
Okay,
a
because
guest preference.
I got one word, and I could use a quote if you need me to. But I think my one word and kind of how I've tried to define um, my life around this word is just perseverance. And I know that's like such a hard word to say, um, but perseverance. And when I think of persevering, I think of it's continuing to do something difficult to achieve success, and continuing to make yourself discipline yourself to get back in the books or get back out on the street running or get back out doing what you do and continuing to do what you got to do to be successful. So perseverance, that's my word I'm going to go with.
Yeah, I like it. I think it fits personally with this episode today, and also with your story, which is great. So really good fit. Jonathan, if listeners if they have questions, comments, they wanna follow you, how can they do so after the podcast?
Yeah, so obviously, if you would like to buy insurance for me this summer, you could, and you're in the state of Pennsylvania, you can contact me. Um, but my Instagram handle is my first name dot my last name, so that's Jonathan.Rachel. And I'd hate to admit that I'm on Instagram pretty frequently, so if you feel free to reach out, I will definitely get back to you. I'll be so excited that someone reached out. I'd probably get back to you immediately, to be honest with you. So,
We will put Jonathan's contact info in today's show notes. So yeah, thanks again for tuning in today's episode, and a big thank you for Jonathan being on the podcast. When it comes to sharing my story, be sure to follow the Daily Grind at KJF Daily Grind on Instagram, and me, your host, at Kelly J. Lefty on Instagram or Twitter. Make sure to go to our podcast network website, ambiguouspodcastsolutions.com, for more content such as You Mad Bro, the Sam Bustle podcast, and GDP, Goal Driven Professionals. Listen on Google, Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. Until next time, my name is Kelly Johnson. Have a great day.